All right, let's do this. Today, we're diving deep into 8 keys to practicing mindfulness, a really interesting audiobook by Manuela Mishki Reads.
It is a good one.
If you're listening to this deep dive, I think it's safe to say that you're probably interested in learning how to be more present and maybe even a little bit calmer in your everyday life.
Yeah.
And this audiobook is, well, it's packed with insights and practical exercises that you can actually use. So get ready.
Yeah, and you've probably heard a lot about mindfulness and meditation, but this book kind of goes beyond the basics. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that Miss Reads talks about mindfulness in kind of unexpected places.
Yeah.
Like she talks about how you can use it to navigate like corporate boardrooms or even improve the effectiveness of elite athletes.
Well, hold on. Mindfulness for CEOs and Olympians. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Exactly. It's like
Mm.
she's saying that mindfulness is really about fine-tuning your attention and awareness, which are valuable in any field. It's not about like escaping reality, but rather like fully being present in it, whether you're facing a high-stakes negotiation or you're trying to hit that game-winning shot.
So it's less about chanting Om on a mountaintop and more about, like you said, being present in the trenches of everyday life.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
And her approach is really interesting because she draws on her background in Hakomi therapy, which emphasizes this idea of individualizing the practice. So she says there's no one-size-fits-all mindfulness method, so finding what works for you is key.
That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, we all experience the world in different ways, but is there any proof that mindfulness actually works? I mean, like, does it really live up to the hype?
That's where it gets really interesting. Mindfulness isn't just some like mystical concept anymore. There's actually a growing body of scientific research that backs up its benefits. Studies have shown that mindfulness can help reduce stress and anxiety symptoms, improve sleep quality, and even strengthen our immune systems.
Wow. So it's not just for the worried.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And, there's even promising research on its effectiveness in treating like serious conditions like depression and even PTSD.
That's incredible. It really sounds like mindfulness can make a real difference in people's lives. But I'm curious, in the audiobook, how does Mishki Reads explain, like, how behind all of this? Like, how does it actually work?
Well, one of the things she talks about is she describes mindfulness as almost like a mental technology.
Hmm.
It's like a tool that you can use to navigate the ups and downs of life. And, remember that Harvard study that found that we spend nearly half of our waking hours lost in thought?
I do remember that statistic. It blew my mind. Imagine, like, reclaiming almost half of your waking hours from just mindless distraction. Like, what could you accomplish? What relationships could you deepen? It's kind of crazy to think about.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's where mindfulness comes in. The book gives some really relatable examples, too, like managing frustration with teenagers or even dealing with those moments of road rage we've all been there.
Yeah.
Or even just the stress of like always running late. Mindfulness doesn't eliminate those experiences, but it does equip you to handle them in a much better way.
So how does the audiobook actually, like, guide you toward putting mindfulness into practice?
She breaks it down into what she calls the 8 keys. So the first 3 keys lay the foundation. Slowing down, finding the right posture, and focusing on your breathing. Then keys 4, 5, and 6 tackle the tough stuff. Identifying obstacles to mindfulness, working with difficult feelings, and learning to use your body as a resource.
So it's kind of like a step-by-step guide to becoming more mindful.
Yeah, exactly. And then the final 2 keys, 7 and 8, help you deepen your practice and cultivate that sense of calmness that I think a lot of us are looking for. And they also help you shift toward a more abundant mindset. So it's not just about coping, it's about thriving. And the best part is that the audiobook is packed with exercises to guide you through each key.
Okay, I am ready to dive into those keys. But before we do, I'm curious about something. In the audiobook, Mishki Reads talks about taking a baseline assessment before starting any mindfulness practices. What is that all about?
That's a really important point, and I love how she emphasizes this. It's basically like taking a snapshot of your mental and physical state before you begin practicing mindfulness. And by setting this benchmark, you can actually track the impact that your practice is having. Like you can really see if it's making a difference.
Oh, so it's not just a feeling, it's something you can actually measure.
Exactly. And this ties in really nicely with this idea of the inner witness, which is that ability to kind of observe your thoughts and feelings without judging them. And she used this brilliant analogy of checking your coat at a museum. Have you ever heard this
I
one?
don't think so.
Okay, so imagine you're going to a museum and you check your coat at the door. You don't stop being you just because you've taken off your coat.
Right.
So in the same way, when we practice mindfulness, we're not trying to get rid of our thoughts and feelings. We're simply creating some space between ourselves and those thoughts and feelings so that we can observe them more objectively.
So you're saying it's kind of like we're handing our baggage over to the attendant at the coat check.
Exactly. It gives us this freedom to move through the museum, which is our life in this case, with more ease and enjoyment.
I love that analogy. It's like we're giving ourselves permission to just be present without all of that extra weight holding us down. But
Yeah.
how do we actually develop that inner attendance, so to speak?
Well, it's a skill that you cultivate through practice. And the audiobook offers some techniques for doing just that. Essentially, it's about creating that space between you and your reactions so that you can choose how to respond rather than just reacting on autopilot.
So instead of just reacting with anger when someone cuts me off in traffic, I could actually pause and choose a more skillful response.
Exactly. And there's even research that suggests that this ability to observe without judgment can actually have ripple effects, increasing empathy and kindness towards others.
So being more mindful doesn't just benefit you, it can actually positively impact your relationships as well.
Absolutely. But mindfulness isn't a quick fix. Michiki Reeds is very clear about that. And she outlines 3 foundations for a successful practice: setting the right frame,
Mm,
staying and studying and anchoring and harvesting. Have you ever heard of these before?
those sound interesting. Tell me more.
Okay, so setting the right frame is like setting an intention for your practice. It could be as simple as acknowledging I'm choosing to take this time for myself.
So it's about honoring the experience.
Exactly. Then there's staying and studying, which
Yeah.
is where you kind of dive into the practice itself. You observe your thoughts, feelings, and sensations with curiosity. No judgment, just noticing what's there.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. And what about anchoring and harvesting? What does that involve?
Think of it like this. You're not just letting those insights fade away. You're taking a moment to reflect on what you've experienced. Maybe you jot down some notes. This helps to solidify what you've learned.
I love that image of like harvesting the insights from your practice. It's like you're gathering these valuable treasures to take with you into your daily life. But with our busy schedules, how do we actually find the time to be mindful?
That's such a good question, and Mishki Reeds addresses this directly in the audiobook. She offers this really practical tip for incorporating mindfulness into your morning routine. Instead of like hitting the ground running first thing in the morning, she suggests taking a moment to check in with yourself.
So instead of reaching for my phone first thing in the morning, I should be checking in with my inner world.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what's your baseline right now? How do you want to approach this day? It's a really powerful way to start your day.
It sounds so simple, yet potentially transformative. I'm already feeling inspired to give it a try. But what if I can only spare a few minutes each day? Is that even enough to make a difference?
That's the beauty of mindfulness. You can start small and build consistency over time. Small steps consistently taken lead to big changes.
I love that. So it's not about striving for perfection, but about making mindfulness a sustainable part of our lives.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is about progress, not perfection. And speaking of starting small, one of the things that really stood out to me in this audiobook was Mishki Reed's emphasis on just noticing the present moment.
Yeah, like that quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. But how do we actually become more attentive to the present moment? It feels like our minds are always like racing ahead or dwelling on the past.
Well, Mishki Reeds uses this wonderful analogy in the audiobook.
Okay.
She compares the present moment to like our true home, a place of peace and contentment.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Tell me more.
So she talks about how young children have this incredible ability to just be completely absorbed in the present moment.
They're fascinated by like the smallest details.
Yeah.
You know, a ladybug crawling on a leaf or the way the sunlight dances on the wall. Like they haven't yet developed that self-consciousness or judgment that we often carry as adults.
That's so true. As a kid, I could spend hours building elaborate worlds out of Legos, like completely lost in the process.
Exactly. And Mishki Reeds argues that we still have that capacity for present moment awareness as adults. It's just that we get so caught up in the busyness of life, you know, in our to-do lists and our worries, that we lose touch with it.
So how do we reclaim that childlike wonder? Is that where meditation comes in?
Meditation is definitely a powerful tool for cultivating mindfulness.
Hmm.
But Mishki Reeds makes an important distinction between the two.
Okay, so if mindfulness is like the goal, then is meditation, like the training regimen? And just like with physical exercise, are there different types of mindfulness workouts that we can choose from?
I love that analogy. So she describes mindfulness as like a way of being, an awareness that we can access in any moment. Meditation is more of like a formal practice that helps us to strengthen our mindfulness muscles, so to speak.
So it's like going to the gym for your mind, building up those mental biceps for greater awareness and focus.
Exactly. It's like dedicated time to train your attention and become more familiar with the workings of your own mind. And as you practice meditation, you become more adept at bringing that mindfulness into your daily life.
And that's ultimately what we're aiming for, right?
Mhm.
Integrating mindfulness into the fabric of our lives, not just relegating it to a cushion in a quiet room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a Buddhist monk to benefit from mindfulness.
Right.
Mishki Reeds emphasizes that mindfulness is not a religion. It's a human capacity that transcends cultural and spiritual boundaries.
I think that's really reassuring for people who might be intimidated by the spiritual connotations that are often associated with mindfulness. It's really about tapping into something that's already within us.
Exactly. And the research is pretty compelling. Studies have shown that mindfulness can help reduce stress and anxiety, improve sleep quality, and even boost our immune systems. And it can also be incredibly helpful for managing chronic pain. And there's even promising research on its effectiveness in treating conditions like depression and PTSD.
We talked about the science a little bit earlier, but it's worth repeating. It's not just touchy-feely stuff. There's real scientific evidence to support these claims. But I'm curious about like the inner workings of mindfulness. Like how does it actually create these positive changes?
One of the key tools that Mishki Reeds introduces is the concept of the inner witness.
Yes, we touched on that earlier, but I'd love to dive a little deeper. What is the inner witness and how do we cultivate it?
So the inner witness is that part of us that can observe our thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them. It's like taking a step back and becoming like an impartial observer of our own internal experience.
It sounds a bit like having a tiny wise sage perched on your shoulder, offering a calm and objective perspective on the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions that are swirling within.
I love that image.
Hmm.
And cultivating this inner witness allows us to create space between our emotions and our reactions. So instead of being ruled by our impulses, we can choose how to respond.
So, for example, instead of reacting to a stressful email with anger and like sending off a fiery reply, we might be able to pause, notice the anger arising within us, and choose a more skillful response.
Precisely. This ability to observe our emotions without judgment is incredibly powerful. It helps us to break free from those habitual patterns of thinking and behaving that can cause us so much suffering.
It's like hitting the pause button on autopilot and taking back control of the wheel.
Exactly. And Mishki Reeds offers some really practical advice in the audiobook for developing this inner witness. She emphasizes the importance of paying attention to our bodies.
I've heard that before, the whole mind-body connection thing. But how does paying attention to our bodies actually help us to cultivate mindfulness?
Well, often our bodies are giving us signals long before our minds catch on. We might feel tension in our shoulders or a tightness in our chest, but we're so busy rushing through our day that we don't even notice. It's like we're living in our heads, disconnected from our physical experience.
It's like our bodies are trying to send us smoke signals, but we're too busy staring at our screens to notice.
Exactly. And by tuning into our bodies, we can start to recognize those early warning signs of stress or emotional upset. And it gives us an opportunity to intervene before things escalate. It's like having an early warning system for our emotional well-being.
So how do we actually start paying more attention to our bodies? Do we need to become like yoga masters or marathon runners?
It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
Mishki Reeds suggests a really simple practice. Throughout the day, just pause for a moment and bring your attention to your breath. Notice the sensation of your chest rising and falling, the coolness of the air as you inhale, the warmth of your breath as you exhale.
That sounds so simple yet so powerful. It's like a mini meditation that we can do anywhere, anytime.
Exactly. And the more you practice this, the more you'll start to become aware of those subtle sensations in your body. You'll start to notice how your body responds to different thoughts and emotions.
It's like developing a whole new language, a way of understanding ourselves from the inside out.
And this understanding is the foundation of mindfulness. It allows us to respond to life's challenges with greater clarity, wisdom, and compassion.
So it's not just about feeling calmer, it's about cultivating a deeper understanding of ourselves and how we interact with the world around us.
Absolutely. But how do we actually go about integrating mindfulness into our daily lives? Does Mishki Reeds offer any guidance on this?
Well, one of your suggestions really surprised me. In the audiobook, Mishki Reeds talks about the importance of posture.
Oh, yeah.
It might seem like a small detail, but she really emphasizes how our physical posture can actually influence our mental state.
It is interesting, isn't it? We tend to like slump over when we're feeling down and we stand tall when we're confident.
Hmm.
It's almost like our bodies are reflecting our inner state. But what Mishki Reed suggests is that this connection works both ways.
So you're saying that if we intentionally shift our posture, we can actually shift our mindset.
Exactly. She calls it mindful posture. And it's about finding this balance between effort and ease. It's not about forcing yourself into some rigid position, but rather like finding a posture that allows you to be both alert and relaxed.
I'm trying to picture what that looks like. Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so imagine yourself like sitting on a meditation cushion or even just in a chair. Your spine is upright but not stiff. Your shoulders are relaxed, your chest is open, and your chin is slightly tucked. It's a posture that kind of conveys a sense of dignity and presence.
I can almost feel the difference just imagining it. I often catch myself hunching over my computer, especially when I'm stressed or focused on a task.
And that's the point Mishki Reed suggests this simple experiment. Try like slumping over in your chair and notice how you feel. Then sit up straight and see if you notice a shift in your energy or mood. Even these small adjustments to our posture can have a really noticeable impact on our mental state.
I am definitely going to try that. It makes you wonder how much our physical habits are shaping our inner world.
Totally. And mindful posture isn't just for meditation. We can bring this into our everyday lives, whether we're standing in line at the grocery store, walking the dog, or even just sitting at our desks. We can pay attention to our posture and make these small adjustments to support our overall well-being.
It's like a little life hack for boosting our mood and energy levels throughout the day.
Totally.
I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together. The inner work of mindfulness and the outer expressions of it in our posture and our actions.
Yeah.
Mishki Reeds emphasizes that mindfulness isn't about achieving some perfect state of bliss.
Right.
It's about being present with whatever arises, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not about escaping from our difficult emotions, but learning to meet them with compassion and understanding.
Precisely. And she offers some really practical advice for working with those challenging feelings and introduces a practice called staying and studying.
That sounds intriguing. What exactly does it mean to stay and study?
So it's about like turning toward our discomfort instead of trying to push it away. It's about bringing a gentle curiosity to our experience, noticing the sensations in our bodies, the thoughts in our minds, and the emotions that are present.
Hmm. It sounds a bit like being a scientist observing a fascinating specimen under a microscope.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And the more we can approach our difficult emotions with this kind of open-minded curiosity, the less threatening they become. We start to see that they're not our enemies, but rather like messengers that are trying to teach us something.
So instead of getting caught up in the storyline of our thoughts and emotions, we can simply observe them with a sense of detachment.
Exactly. And as we do this, we create space for those difficult emotions to move through us without overwhelming us. We realize that we are not our thoughts and feelings.
Hmm.
We are the awareness that is witnessing them.
That is a really profound shift in perspective.
It is.
It's like we're stepping outside of ourselves and becoming the observer of our own inner world.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
So what does this all mean? We've explored Mishki Reed's 8 keys to practicing mindfulness, from the importance of posture to the power of the inner witness. Where do we go from here?
Well, the beauty of mindfulness is that it's a lifelong journey of discovery. There's always more to learn and explore. And this audiobook is a fantastic starting point, and it provides a wealth of practical exercises to help you deepen your practice.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to bring a little more mindfulness into my own life. I think I'm going to start by paying more attention to my posture throughout the day and just see if that makes a difference. What about you?
I'm already thinking about how I can incorporate those stay and study techniques into my own emotional landscape. Mishki Reed's insights have definitely given me a lot to ponder.
And that's what we love about these deep dives. It's about sparking that curiosity and inspiring you to continue exploring these ideas long after the episode is over. Who knows what insights and transformations await you on your own mindfulness journey?